Do tenants ever fight? Have you ever had to evict? What kind of drama have you had to deal with? Mental health issues? This is a lot. Oh my God. Food getting stolen, ex-girlfriends showing up and bashing in windows, mates having loud intercourse, and there is no way to avoid drama in a house. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. This is Jacoby Ataco, real estate investor and entrepreneur here in Las Vegas. Today, we're going to be talking about room rentals or rent by the room, house hacking, lots of different names. And I'm going to be going over some of the most commonly asked questions that I get asked all the time about just how we manage our room rentals. So my wife and I currently have 2 properties that we rent out by the room, and each of those properties has 7 tenants in it. That's right. This is the true story. 7 strangers picked to live in a house. I've had the privilege of having really 3 mentors. One I've met, 2 of which they don't even know they're mentors, but people who have already done the rent by the room model and they have done it really well. And they've created some great systems, and I was able to take from all 3 of them and kind of craft my own system. One of the people that I use is Spencer Cornelia. He's got a great YouTube channel where he talks about how he set up his room rental, and it was really Spencer who gave me the idea of going from 6 to 7 bedrooms, which I thought was nuts. Turns out this guy's a genius. In addition to that, there's Todd Baldwin, who also had a room rental model. And Todd Baldwin actually did a great job of creating systems to make these houses run like a machine. I took a lot of great content from Todd and used some of his ideas that I still use today. The last one is the Property Pastor. He has a YouTube channel. He hasn't created a lot of content recently, but he had some great stuff from just really how to set up these properties and really giving details. With that being said, let's get started. How did we choose our house? That's a great question. My wife actually found the house, but it really ticked off all the boxes that we wanted. The house was in a very nice location in a good area where there's a lot of pride of ownership. People take care of their properties. It's also pretty centrally located. There's a freeway really close to it, so it's easy to access other areas. You can get it all around Las Vegas pretty quickly just by jumping on this freeway. There's a gym next door. There's grocery shopping and dining, all of the things that you would want if you were living in a house. In addition to that, there's a bus line that's really close. So it's really easy for some people who don't have cars, which you will find when you do room rentals. Not everyone has a vehicle. Really easy for people to get to and from their job just because the transportation, public transportation is right there near them. Do tenants ever fight? We've been lucky. There hasn't been an actual fight, but as you can imagine, there's been plenty of conflicts. Now, we've tried to take measures in really trying to avoid conflicts so we don't get a lot of things in terms of, fist fights or anything like that. But there's going to be things that come up. I've lived with my wife for over 20 years, and we still have conflicts as roommates. So I don't think there's any way to completely avoid conflicts. But one of the things that we created is we try to think like a roommate, right? My wife and I both have roommates all our lives. And so when I was in college, I went to UC Santa Barbara. I was a basketball player. And in Santa Barbara, it's impossible to live there without roommates unless you are just doing well in life. And so being in college, I wasn't doing that well. So I had to have roommates. And so you get used to having roommates, but you also remember those times and think about the things and the conflicts that come up when you have roommates. For example, cleanliness. There's going to be some people who are very clean, and there's going to be some people who are not so clean. My wife is the meticulous kind, right? She wants everything clean all the time. I was more of the slob when we came into our relationship. I got used to living with a bunch of dudes. Things would be left out, and that stuff just didn't bug me. So we've learned to coexist and make sure that we both are happy, which really just means I do a lot more cleaning now. So for us creating the house, we've thought of those things. So we have things like maid service that comes in and cleans up the common areas. We don't assign parking. Parking is open to everyone. We want to make sure that there's no fights. It's basically who first come, first serve. Toilet paper is another thing that people will constantly fight over, who's next to buy the toilet paper. So I actually just send the house's toilet paper every 3 months. Quiet hours. Some people are going to be working late. Some people are going to be working early. So there's certain times of the night, I think it's 10 p.m., but that you just have to have quiet hours where you're not allowed to disturb other tenants. So by having those rules in place, it really helps to avoid those issues that will likely come up anyway. Same thing with overnight guests. That's a big one that we went back and forth on. But overnight guests, we decided to ultimately allow as long as those guests will abide by the same rules as all the other tenants and they're not causing any issues. So as long as we have those things in place, we've been able to do a pretty good job of avoiding most conflicts. Is it difficult to find tenants? Surprisingly, no. I mean, think about where we are in society right now. House prices are crazy, rent prices are going up constantly, rates are really high, so it's hard for people to buy homes. So, surprisingly enough, the room rental model is really high demand right now. And I have tenants that range from retirees who are on fixed income to young professionals just saving up so that they can buy a house. And because we bought a house in a really nice area, we tend to get nicer tenants, right? Tenants who can afford to pay a little bit more. They don't necessarily need to rent a room, but they are looking to save money. Or the retired guys, right, who just want a very nice, clean, safe place that they can lay their head and don't have to worry about rent increases because I don't raise the rents on them. How do you manage all your keys? It's actually a really good question. If you can imagine this, right? We have two houses, each with seven tenants in it, and each of those tenants has a room with a locked door, which means we're going to have seven keys for each one of those tenants. Plus, we need 1 to 2 spare keys for each one of them in case they lose the key or whatever. Plus, there's a front door key. As you can imagine, there's lots of keys to keep track of. So I created a system. I have key rings set up for each house, and then I've labeled each one of the keys. And one of the ways that we've tried to cut down on keys a little bit is that the front doors all have a keypad lock. None of the tenants have a key to the front door. Whenever a new tenant moves in, I just give them their own unique code that allows them into the house. And then when they move out, I just change that code. So makes it a little bit easier to manage with less keys, so I don't have to give out another 7 keys for the front door and have to worry about people having access to in and out of the house after they moved out. Do you furnish the property? We furnish all the common areas. So the living room, sofa, TV, dining room, kitchen, forks, knives, pans, but we don't furnish the actual bedrooms. Now, this is one of those points where Spencer Cornelia versus Todd Baldwin, they have different models. So Spencer, he actually furnishes all the bedrooms. Todd Baldwin would leave it empty. And I kind of like Todd Baldwin's approach. I found that one, it cuts down on me having to pay the maids to go back and do more cleaning. Each one of the tenants is assigned their own cabinet space too. So they've got like top and bottom with a drawer, top bottom cabinets with a drawer. And so they can bring in their own stuff if they have it. And we have a little bit of space for them. That's kind of the way I decided to do it is I like more longer term people. And so my goal is to find tenants who are going to be there as long as possible. So I like them to bring their own stuff into the bedrooms and furnish them that way. And that's actually worked really well for us. It just takes a lot more cleaning and maintenance if you're furnishing the area because you've got to prep that room. It's more like a hotel. You've got more work to do between tenants. We also, by the way, keep 2 fridges and a freezer in each of the properties. Got to have enough area for food. How do you manage utility waste? Oh my God, that's the one. Utilities in Nevada are terrible. They've gone up in price like everything else, especially the electricity bill. So one of the things we keep house rules that regarding is no utility waste. Um, Obviously, that's not something you can completely manage. You just like to ask people not to leave windows open or leave lights on for long periods of time. We've also installed EcoBees, which is a Nevada Power thermostat that they install, but it controls the temperature in the house. So they can't go above a certain temperature in the winter, and they can't go below a certain temperature in the summer months. So just to help make sure that we're not going crazy on the utilities because those bills can get crazy. Have you ever had to evict anyone? Thank God, no. We've been really fortunate to never have to evict. I have had a few people who have fallen behind, and truthfully, I don't let people fall behind very long. Someone's struggling, I immediately contact them. We have a conversation, and I tell them like, hey, I don't allow people to stay behind. I'm willing to help you, find a new place if this place is not affordable for you. And I reiterate for them that I'm willing to pay their deposit back like immediately. That way that they have enough money to go find another place. And I don't like charge them an arm and a leg to move out or break the lease early. My goal is to get someone in there who can afford it. So if you find people who are falling behind, I found it very useful to just work with them and help them find another place as quickly as possible. And as a result of that, I think that's the reason we haven't had to evict anyone. That's probably happened maybe 3 times in 4 years. So I've been really fortunate to find good tenants. I do screen pretty heavily, making sure they have enough income. Really, the only time that I've gotten close to evicting someone, he shouldn't have been in the property in the first place. He had a cosigner, and that's the only reason I let him in. But it's a lesson I've learned. I'm not going to do cosigners anymore. The guy's got bad credit or whatever for a reason. A cosigner doesn't change that. Is it passive? No. No. Real estate in general isn't actually passive. There's always going to be some work. Even if you have a property manager, there's still some work involved in managing that property manager. And the room rental model is going to take on even more work than traditional. The room rental model, that is a little bit more active because you're going to have a little bit more turnover. And I think for a lot of people, they really have to decide if they have the time and the energy to manage a room rental. How does the cash flow compare to a traditional property? A traditional property, we try to target about 500 a month on average with each of our regular properties. Our primary room rental, we're again 7 bedrooms. That one averages about $5,400 in gross income, and the expenses run about $3,000 a month, maybe a little over 3,000. So we're getting close to $2,300, $2,400 a month on that property, whereas all the other properties are about $500 a month on average. You're working harder for that additional income, there's no doubt about it, but it's not like a 9 to 5 job. Maybe like a few hours a month, possibly, and for a $2,500 paycheck, I got no issues with that personally. Yeah, it's worth it. What surprises have there been owning this room rental? Um, That's a really good question. I honestly think the biggest surprise for me is just how much demand there is. Again, like I mentioned earlier, houses are really expensive, and the people that I thought that were going to be my tenants would be people who just couldn't afford to live anywhere else. And I think that's the case if you buy a house in maybe a not so nice part of town, a house that's a little beat up and old. You're going to find that the people who are willing to live there are people who can only afford that type of house. In my places, all of the rooms stay rented. When someone moves out, I have someone else moved in within a couple of days normally. Whenever I put an ad out because I've got a room available, it typically blows up. Like I get hundreds and hundreds of requests, and a lot of them, in fairness, I have to turn away. For some reason, tons of people who want to rent a room have an animal or a pet or whatever, and we don't allow any pets. I just don't even go down that rabbit hole. Some people just don't realize that it's a room rental and they just think the price is incredible. But so I have to turn those away. But even still, I get a ton of people who are just interested in renting out these rooms. So it tends to get filled really, really quickly. Also, the other surprise that's been just difference between these properties and the other properties that we own that we rent out more traditionally with one family. These houses where we rent out by the room stay immaculately clean, right? And that's for a couple of reasons. Is one, if you get messy people, that's contained to their bedroom. I've gone in some rooms and I'm like, oh my God, like this is a lot. But the rest of the house stays just unbelievably clean. I have to go there obviously whenever I do a showing. And the houses are quiet, they're well maintained. They're just nicer. People just take care of the houses a little bit better when they know the landlord's going to be there frequently, and that there's other roommates that they have to cater to as well. What kind of drama have you had to deal with? Okay, let me be clear about this. There is no way to avoid drama in a house. Types of drama that we've had over the years, my God, we've had mental health issues, food getting stolen, ex-girlfriends showing up and bashing in windows, crossbows in random rooms, roommates having loud intercourse and waking up other roommates, threats of violence, microwave catching on fire, neighbors stealing trash cans, and of course the most common issue that comes up almost every few months, people locking themselves out. One of my plans in future videos is to actually do a series and detail all of the dramatic issues we've had. I got to be honest, if you're going to do this rent by the room model, you've got to be really good at conflict resolution because no matter what, there's going to be conflict. So if that's something that you think would be entertaining to you, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button and share it with a friend. In fact, go ahead and do the like and subscribe right now. I'll wait. Oh, that's good. Thank you so much for watching. If there's other questions that you have, leave them in the comments below and I'd be more than happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. Appreciate you guys, and as always, have a great one.